Everyone, bonsoir, boa noite todo mundo. This is a very special occasion for us, for IMPA, for Brazilian mathematics. This meeting was a long time coming. I first discussed the idea of having a joint Brazil-France meeting in mathematics 5 years ago in Korea during the General Assembly of the IMU. Came up with the idea, discussed it with Etienne Gis and François Loeser and the other French delegates. And everyone was so positive that during the assembly itself, I started sending emails to the presidents of the other three math societies. I was the president of SBM at that time, suggesting that this could be a good idea. And everyone agreed that given the substance and the quality of the collaboration the two countries have in mathematics, this was kind of a no-brainer, and we should do it. And that's how the societies started selecting names for the scientific committee. It is formed by 3 representatives of each one of the 4 organizing math societies. I must say that at that time, I got some reactions going in the direction of why start organizing something 5 years in advance. But I think that turned out to be a good idea, because that gave the scientific committee plenty of time for selecting the fantastic program that we are going to enjoy during the week. And I want to take the occasion to thank all of the members of the scientific committee, starting with Harold Rosenberg, who chaired the committee and chaired the organization, for the fantastic work that they have done. The collaboration between our two countries in math has a history, historical reasons, and special mechanisms that made it possible. In particular, from the point of view of IMPA, we still miss the French coopération, which brought bright young French to IMPA for periods of 1 year as a way of having their military service done. Etienne was one of the very first ones, but we had a row of fantastic young French mathematicians coming here for long periods. And basically, Thierry Barbeau was also on this list, Christian Bonatti, and of course, Jean-Christophe Yocos was also on that group. Unfortunately, the French coopération doesn't exist anymore, but we still have mechanisms that help keep this cooperation alive and very fruitful. Among them, the Brazil-France network in mathematics, which supports exchange of researchers. And we have here with us the 2 coordinators of this network. Jaco Pal is on the Brazilian side, and Charles Favre on the French side. And I'm sure they will be happy to give you any additional information on how the network works and how to apply for support to pursue collaboration between the 2 countries. In addition to that, IMPA is Unité Mixte Internationale of the CNRS, which means that we are all French here. And also we have the support of the Institut de France through the Grand Prix Scientifique Louis D, that also sponsored this meeting. I will come back at the end of the ceremony for a special commercial, special advertisement that I want to make. But right now I would like to pass the word to the representatives of the organizing societies. And it seems that the protocol put our French colleagues at the end of the table. That was not intentional. So I will try to compensate by giving Gérard Besson the word right now. Please, Gérard.
Bonjour à tous. So my name is Gérard Besson. I'm not the president of the French Mathematical Society, so the one which is called SMF. But the president is Stéphane Serret and couldn't come for private reasons. And he asked me to speak on his behalf. And he also sent me things to say. So there is a second French Mathematical Society represented here by my colleague, who is at the very end of the table. Okay, so at the SMF, we are very happy that the first joint meeting, Brazil-France, takes place. And Brazil, as well as France, in both countries, the research in mathematics covers a wide range of subjects. And this can be seen in the number of special sessions that have been organized and a number of talks, which is kind of huge, but they are all very exciting. So the colleagues, it turns out that the colleagues from both countries have been very enthusiastic in organizing a special session or participating to this event, and that makes us very happy. So as Marcello said, and as it was said this morning also, the relationship between our two communities have started a long time ago, I guess in the 50s. So on the web page at IMPA, people like André Weil and Laurent Schwartz are mentioned. Among the French who have spent a long time in Brazil, and some of them are in the room, I want to say a special word for Jean-Christophe Yokoz, whose work was alluded to this morning and whom we miss. So a special word brings me to emphasize what Marcello said just a minute ago, the existence here of a unit of the CNRS. So indeed the CNRS, so CNRS is an institution which I like very much because they have paid my salary for so long. And I think my friend Etienne is also really attached to this very original institution. And CNRS decided to create a unit called UMI, which means Unité Mixte Internationale, a research unit here at IMPA. And this is a very strong commitment because they provide support for mathematicians from France to spend 6 months or preferably a year here in Brazil. So by support, I mean financial support. And so, of course, there are several applications. I think what's the figure of people who can come here at the same time? Maybe not more than 5 people or something like this. But there are more applications, and there is a selection procedure. But you are all welcome, well, the French, to apply and spend a year here to collaborate. So this is explicitly mentioned in the application that you should collaborate with Brazilian mathematicians. So this unit has been renamed 2 years ago after Jean-Christophe Yokoz. And I think these kind of units exist in other places in the world, but there are not more than 12. And I can tell you that not all are as successful as the one which is here at IMPA. So Brazil is a major country of mathematics in number of researchers, publications, and this was embodied by the ICM 2018. Well, it turns out that France is applying for hosting the ICM 2026, and we do hope that Brazil will be on our side. So this is something that I was supposed to say, right? And Stéphane Serret, so the president of SMF, told me something else. You are all welcome to become a member of SMF or SMAI, depending on your mathematics. By all, I mean Brazilian, of course. You are very welcome to be part of the family, but also the French. And I believe, but Paolo will tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the converse is true. We should all become members of SBM or SBMAC.
You get a 50% discount if you are a member of both.
Very good. I sign tonight. And so let me finish by taking a rendezvous. And let's say that we try to meet in a reasonable delay in France for the second round, which we will call Franco-Brazilian meeting. And well, on behalf of the French participant, I thank you for bringing us here in Rio.
So I pass the word to Nicolas Vauchelet, who represents the French Math Society on Applied Industrial Mathematics.
Thanks a lot. I'm very glad to be here. Yes, okay. I'm not the president of the French Society for Applied Industrial Mathematics. The president is Thierry Orsin. He's not here for the moment because there is a big congress, the ICM Congress right now in Spain, but it's here. But I am the general secretary for this French Learn Mathematical Society. Thierry Orsin is not here, but he sent to me this slide that you can see right now. And okay, I will not repeat what my colleagues say, which is really true. I mean, we have there is a big connection between France and Brazil in mathematics, and this is very important. And also, the French Mathematical Society is very for applied industrial mathematics is very proud to be a member of these connections. And I just give few words to present what is this society. This society exists since 1987. It has roughly 1,200 members. Its goal is to promote a scientific policy in favor of applied mathematicians and the attraction of mathematics on industry. The association has been recognized as public utility since 2005. I think it's the same for the SMF. Okay. And the SMAI is organizer of several events. You have a list of events. Most of them are in France, but there are also some international summer schools. For instance, the school French and Spanish Jacques Williams every year. There is a SEMRAC school that maybe some of you know, because I know that some Brazilian people come sometimes into these schools every summer in Marseille, in Lumini. And there are some other mediation, scientific mediatization, some other summer school in financial maths, and some math career fair. Next slide, please. Okay, the SMAI is a member of several prizes. Most of them are in collaboration with the SMF, but also with the CNRS. You have a list of all the prizes here. Also, the SMAI is a scientific editor for several journals in applied mathematics. You have the list of the 8 journals here, from COCV, M2EN, Probability Statistics, PROC, MMNP, and so on. And also, there are some journals in education. An important mission for the SMAI is to promote the parity, equality, and human rights, in particular in developing mathematics in developing countries. There are several actions to support young mathematicians, for instance, the BOOM project, the Math Career Fair, and Opération Post, which is very well known in France. This is a website collecting position in math, in particular in France, but also around the world. And there are some other brochures that has been done in mathematics to present the mathematics professions in France and all over the world. Okay, and finally, we have many interactions with other society, in particular with the Brazilian society, the EMS, the ICM, CMAI, and so on. Okay, I just conclude my presentation right now, and I let continue the discussion. Thank you.
So Paulo Piccione will speak for the Brazilian Math Society.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And yes, believe it or not, I am the president of the Brazilian Mathematical Society. And I would like to thank all the participants on behalf of the Brazilian mathematical community. I want to thank the French societies present here, the French Mathematical Society and the French Society for Applied and Industrial Math, and our friend from SBMAC also. And I want to thank the IMPA for hosting this event. Brazil has been organizing this joint meeting with several countries, and France is a very special country for Brazil, because we look at French mathematics and the French educational system with admiration. For us, this is also a special occasion, because the Brazilian Mathematical Society is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. So it is a very nice coincidence that these two things happen at the same time. Let me also add that I want to thank the presence of the French General Council, which is, in a sense, I intend as a political presence, and this witnesses the fact that in spite of the hard times that we're living in, our countries strongly believe in science and education as important values of our culture. And finally, I want to thank the scientific committee for having put together such a great program, and all the participants, speakers, and simple participants. I wish each and every one of you a special week, and maybe a fruitful experience, not only for mathematics, but also for socializing. Don't forget that also meeting people and knowing other culture is as important as learning some other mathematics. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Paulo. Luis Mariano represents the Brazilian Society for Applied and Computational Mathematics. Told me he feels represented by the speeches so far. So he waives his right to speak, and I will pass the word to Philippe Michelon as I thank him for coming and honoring this occasion in the very aftermath of 14 Juillet celebrations, is here on official duty. Philippe.
Thank you, Marcelo. A good end of afternoon to everyone, and thank you for sharing this moment, which is, I hope so, I think so, I guess so, very important for the collaboration between France and Brazil in mathematics. I think that we all know that organizing such a meeting requires a lot of work, so I would like to thank the organization committee, the scientific committee, the IMPA and its staff for their work. I'm quite sure that this event will be a success, and for sure it will be due to their work. The collaboration history in mathematics between France and Brazil is very rich. Marcelo recalled it. I would say a little bit more. I would say that it is a collaboration which is active, he said it, but also lively and able to renew itself, to reinvent itself almost at each year. For instance, this year, for the first time in Brazil, the math engine concept has been introduced. I guess that every French mathematician knows what is math engine. For Brazilian people, math engine is a French association which aims to introduce at the college level a research approach for mathematics. So this year, for the first one, with the help of FIRGEN, the Rio de Janeiro Industry Federation, and some French colleagues, Brazilian colleagues too, we develop and we introduce the math engine concept. So this collaboration is very rich and very active. Well, as I said, I'm sure that this meeting will be successful. It will certainly give you some inspiration for new research. I hope you will make some new contacts. And I wish you a very nice Congress and a very nice stay in Rio for the French person. Thanks a lot.
Harold?
The first international mathematical meeting in Brazil was in 1971, almost 50 years ago, in Salvador, and it was organized by Jaco Palis and Maurice Pichotto. At that meeting, there were 40 speakers, 4 from France, all the rest except 2 from the United States of America. And the two in question were from Holland. It was Florence Takens, and Christopher Zeeman from England. So the cooperation at that time between France and between Brazil and other countries was obviously completely oriented towards the United States. Today, there are more than 400 people here in this meeting. There are 227 speakers, so half of them approximately are French. We know that we had French speakers, 50% Brazilians. How is it possible that this cooperation between these two countries, France and Brazil, is so strong now when some 50 years ago it was essentially non-existent? To say one more comment on the strength of this cooperation, this Réseau France-Brazil that between 2001 and 2017, there were 600 missions. No, that can't be right. That's too big a number. One second. That is much too big a number. No, that's the number. I'm sorry, that's the number. 600 missions. It is a big number for the missions. France, Brazil, and 308 published papers signed by authors, French and Brazilian. So that's just between those years for that Réseau France-Brazil. So I'd like to say a few words to try and explain what I believe made this fantastic growth between France and Brazil in mathematics possible. And to do that, I have to go back to Brazilian mathematicians who are no longer with us. They've been deceased relatively recently, namely Mauricio Peixoto, Manfredo do Carmo, and Ellen Lima. This generation was sort of the decade in front of me. I understand what happened to cooperation between our countries in dynamical systems, in geometry, and in holomorphic dynamical systems. And I certainly can't try and talk about all those three. So why don't I just try and explain to you dynamical systems and the growth of dynamical systems and how this became about. Well, we have to go back a little further to the 1950s when Ellen Lima went to do his PhD in Chicago with Spanier in topology. He finished his PhD in 1958. And he became good friends with Stephen Smale, who was a young topologist who had an assistant professor in Chicago. And they were both topologists. Steve was definitely a topologist then. And Mauricio Peixoto was a visiting professor in Brown University. And Ellen introduced Steve to Mauricio. Mauricio was the Brazilian at that time who was really discovering fantastic things in structural stability of dynamical systems on surfaces. And Steve talked to Mauricio and became very, very interested in dynamical systems. And Mauricio invited Steve in 1960 to visit Brazil, and he came for 6 months. And during that 6 months, he solved the Poincare conjecture in dimensions greater than or equal to 5. And he discovered a fantastic thing in dynamical systems, which is a diffeomorphism, which has fantastic structural stability properties, and at the same time enables one to understand that determinism, as we all thought dynamical systems presents, in fact had the property that this structurally stable system has the property that most orbits, you see them go by you on the left, you see them go by you on the right, and if you try and guess whether they're going to the left or to the right, most orbits, the probability that one takes over the other is like flipping a coin heads or tails. So this was a fantastic revelation for Steve Smale, and it generated incredible activity in dynamics. Okay, so we're still in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Ellen Lima and Mauricio Peixoto recommended to a young student by the name of Jaco Palis, here present, to go do his PhD in Berkeley with Steve Smale. Jaco wrote a brilliant thesis, which he finished in 1968, on structural stability, which was a joint paper with Steve that was really a sensation at the time, and it's still considered a very good paper, Jaco. In any case, a property that these three gentlemen, the three elders, Eldon, Mauricio, and Peixoto had, that Jaco had as well, these were students in the United States and had the opportunity to have fantastically good positions in the United States after finishing their studies. And all of them were really determined to do something for education of mathematics in Brazil. This was really a fantastic part of their careers and their aspirations. I shared an office with Ellen Lima in Columbia University in 1963. We were roommates, office mates. And at that time, he solved the famous problem that Jack Milner had proposed. And Jack Milner offered him a job in Princeton for the following year. And Ellen decided to come back to Brazil. I said, why are you going back to Brazil? I couldn't understand this. It's just beyond me that you would give up Princeton and the United States and go back to a country where mathematics essentially was in a very, very primitive state at that time. And he said, well, I was considering heading the math department in the University of Brasilia in 1964, and it's an opportunity to do something for Brazil, in education in Brazil. He went back to do that, and a year or two later, the Brazilian University of Brazil in University of Brasilia was essentially closed down because of political interference. And Ellen came back to the United States for a while, and with Manfredo Tocamo in Berkeley, they did essentially a postdoc, but both of them returned very quickly to IMPA to work at IMPA. In any case, Jaco also came back to try and develop mathematics in Brazil. And let me just tell you some of the students he had, which is an incredible list of really great students. So this is 1972, Wellington de Mello. 1973, Ricardo Magnier. 1977, Paulo Saad. 1990, Lorenzo Diaz. Hey, Marcelo Viana, 1990. Pujals, 96, etc., etc. So these incredible students became the future of dynamical systems in Brazil, which is one of the leading countries in dynamical systems in the world. And this is the devotion of somebody like Jaco, who came back and really from nothing devoted his time and his energy to developing mathematics in Brazil. Okay, so where does France come into this? For the moment where dynamical systems, we're all developed, things are going great. Well, then there is, again, simultaneously what's taking place is geometry is being developed with Manfredo Tocamo, and there's a big development in whole Norfolk dynamical systems because of Cesar Camacho. Cesar Camacho was also a student of Smale in Berkeley 2 years after Jaco. But that's a story I'm not going to tell, but that story exists, just so you know it exists. In any case, as somebody mentioned here, in 1970, okay, so for the first time, an accord between the CNRS and IMPA took place in 1976. And this was Camacho with Sotomayor and Robert Roussari, Robert Musso, and some Brazilian whose name I do not recall, Sotomayor, and, well, Camacho certainly was in the accord, but somebody else as well. In any case, that was the first official accord between the two countries that brought people like Musso and Roussari and Mattei to work in Brazil. Then in 1977 was created this VSNA, which enabled Brazilians to do their military service, the cooperation at IMPA. Now, this was 14 months for people from the CNRS and 2 years for people from the university. So somebody could come here for 2 years and do mathematics and et cetera. So the young people, the young brilliant people like Yukos, like Bonatti, like Ulmo, like Caron, Mattei, I'm forgetting many people here, Bonatti, Etienne Gis, sorry, Etienne. Etienne Gis, you came for 3 years, I believe, is that right? 2.5 years, he really liked it. 2.5 years. But you see, when people like Etienne came here for 2.5 years, Jean-Christophe, etc., that was really cooperation for the future. As you can see, Etienne is here. And I'm sure that if Jean-Christophe was with us, he would be here. And all the people here, well, that explains what's going on between France and Brazil. Let me make one remark that's, I think, important concerning this laboratory UME and French cooperation, and as well as the French réseau. The maximum number of visitors in the French réseau was in recent years was, in fact, in 2006, there were 33 missions, 2006. The number of missions in recent years has diminished. There's a reason for that, that's administrative and bad administration. The French CNRS system decided new rules that enabled the French system to pay diarias, your daily expenses for Brazilians coming to France, not enough to really survive in France. So people essentially stopped requesting missions with the French réseau. But now, recently, that has changed. Now, the daily expenses are compatible with your being able to go to France and live normally and work normally. So don't hesitate to think of applying for missions, talking to the Brazilians in the room, to do research in France. That's just that. Okay, let me finish by saying some real big thank yous, because lots of people worked very, very hard for this meeting. I mean, look at how many people here are essentially having no problems and everything is going very well, except me. No, that's not true. Everything's going very well. Zeze, you have really been marvelous. You have criticized me all the time, but it's okay. Zeze really helped with the organization of this meeting. This couldn't have taken place without what she told me and her help. Sueli, who I don't know if Sueli is in the room, she really worked very, very hard, extra hours for a long, long time, making everything possible. And Laetitia and Paula, no, I'm sorry they're not here, but anyway, thank you very much for everything that you've done. I certainly thank the scientific committee that's not here, because there were perhaps, I don't know, 9 or 10 people on the scientific committee, and we exchanged many, many, many mails, as you can imagine. 25 special sessions, 10 plenary speakers, and Etienne. You can imagine the quantity of mail that these 10 people had to exchange for a period of quite a while before they agreed on something. 10 people agreeing on something is not so easy. And there's always one person among the 10 people that sort of makes it more difficult than one would imagine. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I hope I'm not breaking the protocol speaking French and Portuguese. I'm the director of the UMI, so I'll first address the Brazilian people in the room and then the French people. Então, para os brasileiros, nós somos uma unidade mista internacional do CNRS, como já foi dito aqui, e isso permite a todas as universidades brasileiras acolherem pesquisadores franceses por um período de 6 meses a 1 ano. Essa é uma oportunidade que não tem sido explorada, ela tem apenas beneficiado o IMPA. Então, todo ano o IMPA tem recebido de 2 a 3 pesquisadores franceses que ficam aqui por 1 ano, com seus salários pagos pelo CNRS. Então, insisto, é uma oportunidade para todas as universidades, eles podem pedir uma delegação ao IMPA e do IMPA serem transferidos para qualquer universidade francesa. Então, todos vocês estão aqui, eu imagino, porque têm colaborações com pesquisadores franceses E essa é uma excelente oportunidade para trazer seus colegas, seus colaboradores às suas universidades. Bon, donc je suis là en tant que directeur de l'unité mixte internationale du CNRS ici à l'IMPA. Et je voudrais vous rappeler que c'est une opportunité, c'est donc une manière de venir faire des recherches pendant 6 mois au moins jusqu'à 1 an dans n'importe quelle université brésilienne. Donc cette opportunité n'a été utilisée jusqu'à présent que par l'IMPA. Nous recevons tous les ans de 2 à 3 chercheurs. Ça peut être des maîtres de conférences ou des professeurs qui demandent des délégations au CNRS et ensuite viennent à l'IMPA, ou des chargés de recherche ou des directeurs de recherche qui donc demandent au CNRS de venir à l'IMPA pour 6 mois ou 1 an. Donc jusqu'à présent, l'unité mixte a été créée en 2005. Jusqu'à présent, nous avons eu des chercheurs à l'IMPA, mais jamais cette opportunité n'a été profitée par d'autres universités. Donc, je vous encourage tous à venir ici ou dans une autre université pour maintenir cette longue tradition de collaboration entre Français et Brésiliens. Ensuite, nous avons aussi la possibilité d'accueillir des étudiants, donc en stage typiquement, ou aussi des thèses en co-tutelle. Donc si ceci vous intéresse, entrez en contact. Je crois que pour l'IMPA, pour le Brésil, c'est toujours une grande occasion de maintenir ce type de lien. Donc je vous remercie et j'espère vous revoir bientôt à l'IMPA ou au Brésil. Merci.
I promised that I would come back at the end with an advertisement, and I'm going to do it. About a year ago, I became the editor-in-chief for the Bulletin of the Brazilian Math Society, taking over from Jacob, who did the job for 30 years. So I'm now speaking as the chief editor, taking advantage of my position to advertise the journal. We would be happy to welcome your very good papers. We get very few submissions of papers from France. That's a gap that we want to fill in. And we don't get that many from Brazil either. So whenever, if you right now have a very good paper or are planning on having one in the near future, please do send us your papers. I think in the material that you all received as a leaflet with more information about the bulletin, there are several strong aspects. We answer very quickly. The bulletin is indexed in many of the main databases, and I heard recently from Springer, who does the production and distribution, that our impact factor, for whatever it's worth, was increased by 50% since I took over from Jaco. Thank you very much. I'm about to close the ceremony.
I want to add one thing. I forgot to thank one person here. This was financed in part by a gift of 50,000 reais that was not solicited. We did not ask for this money. Out of the blue sky came 50,000 reais from Marcelo Viana, who received this prize from the Institute in France, the Louis David Prize, and he donated 50,000 reais to our well-being. Thank you.
Thank you. So here we close the ceremony. We thank you all for your presence and for your patience, and I think there will be a cocktail once we get out of the room. Thank you very much.